April 29th. A quiet Sunday morning under a dull gray sky. The air was sharp with cold as soldiers from the United States 45th Infantry Division, known as the Thunderbirds, advanced toward a large compound outside Munich. Intelligence suggested a factory, possibly a storage facility, nothing more. No one warned them. No one could have. As they approached the perimeter, they reached a set of railroad tracks. Sitting motionless on the rails was a long train. 13 cattle cars stood silent, sealed, abandoned. The men moved closer. Before they saw anything, they smelled it, a thick, sickening odor that did not belong to machinery or supplies. One officer climbed onto a car and pulled open the door. What followed was a scream that froze everyone nearby. Inside were bodies, thousands of them, men, women, and children, emaciated, broken, piled without care. They had been left to die from starvation, thirst, and exposure. Some corpses bore bite marks. The living had tried to survive by consuming the dead. These soldiers were not inexperienced. They had fought through Italy and France. They had watched comrades die violently, but nothing in their training or combat history prepared them for this. A 19-year-old private from Oklahoma collapsed into the snow, sobbing uncontrollably. Another soldier turned away and vomited. Shock did not last long. It transformed into something colder. Anger hardened into fury. They looked toward the distant guard towers marked with SS insignia. Hands tightened around rifle stocks. In that moment, the formal rules of war lost their meaning. Conventions, codes, and regulations dissolved. Only one thought remained. This was the day Dachau was liberated. It was also the day discipline shattered. The day American soldiers crossed a line they never imagined approaching. The men of the 45th Division were ordinary Americans, farmers, factory workers, students. Until that morning, they had followed orders, taken prisoners, and treated wounded enemies. But Dachau changed everything. Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks commanded the advance. He tried to maintain order, shouting for his men to keep moving and not fixate on the train. But the images were unavoidable. More than 2,000 bodies lay inside those cars. Hollow eyes stared outward. Skin clung to bone. One soldier later said they were so enraged they wanted to wipe Germany from the earth. At the main gate, SS guards were still present. The camp commandant had already fled, leaving behind a young officer and several hundred SS personnel. The remaining officer understood the war was lost. He dressed carefully, polished his boots, and walked forward under a white flag. He formally announced the surrender of the camp, expecting professional treatment. The American officer facing him saw a well-fed man in a crisp uniform. Behind him lay mountains of dead prisoners. The response was not protocol. The surrender collapsed instantly. As American troops entered the camp, the prisoners realized liberation had arrived. Tens of thousands of skeletal survivors rushed forward, crying, laughing, collapsing, screaming in relief. But while the victims celebrated freedom, the soldiers searched for perpetrators. Near a coal storage area, a group of SS guards attempted to surrender. Hands raised, they repeated that the war was finished, believing those words would protect them. Nearby, an American lieutenant stood, shaking. He had just seen the crematorium. Ash still coated the ovens. Human remains still burned warm. He did not issue a spoken command. He only gestured. The SS guards were lined up against a wall. Panic spread through them. One shouted about international law. A machine gun was mounted. Metal clicked into place. The lieutenant nodded. The gun fired. For several seconds, the sound drowned everything else. When it ended, bodies lay twisted against brick and snow. Some moved briefly. The ground was dark with blood and coal dust. Lieutenant Colonel Sparks ran toward the gunfire. He shouted for it to stop and fired his pistol into the air. The machine gunner looked back, crying, not with regret but conviction. He said they deserved it, and it was not the only killing. At another guard tower, SS personnel climbed down with their hands raised. They were shot before reaching the ground. Their bodies fell into the moat. Soldiers continued firing into the water to ensure no one survived. One soldier later wrote that it was no longer combat, it was execution, and after the boxcars, he felt nothing. The violence was not limited to American soldiers. The prisoners themselves took part, emaciated and barely able to stand. They were driven by adrenaline and rage. They discovered an SS guard hiding in a tower. They dragged him down. Without weapons, they used tools, sticks, and their bare hands. American soldiers watched in silence. Some smoked cigarettes. When asked whether the prisoners should be stopped, a non-commissioned officer answered that they should be allowed to finish. The guard was beaten to death. Elsewhere, prisoners captured a camp capo, an inmate who had collaborated with the SS and abused others. They drowned him in a latrine. For nearly an hour, the camp existed without law. Victims became judges and executioners, while the United States Army deliberately turned away. Eventually, order returned. Colonel Sparks intervened, halting the killings and locking surviving German guards away, partly to protect them from further retaliation. But the truth could not remain hidden. Photographs had been taken. Images of executed SS guards. Images of American soldiers standing over bodies near the coal yard. Days later, an investigation began under Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Whitaker. Witnesses were interviewed. Evidence was gathered. The resulting report concluded that American forces had violated international law. Court-martials were recommended. The report moved upward through command channels until it reached General George S. Patton. Patton studied the photographs. He examined images of the dead SS guards. Then he looked at the pictures of the train filled with corpses. Known for harsh discipline, Patton usually punished minor infractions, but this case was different. He called the SS the lowest form of humanity. When presented with the report, he dismissed it outright. He argued that men exposed to such horrors could not be expected to react with restraint. He described them as overwhelmed, emotionally shattered, and acting on instinct. The court-martial papers were never signed. According to accounts, the report was either destroyed or sealed permanently. Patton made his position clear. There would be no trials. The matter was closed. General Eisenhower agreed. Prosecuting American soldiers for killing SS guards at Dachau would have devastated morale. The investigation was terminated. All charges were dropped. The lieutenant who had gestured the execution returned home and never spoke publicly about the event. He lived quietly and died decades later. The Dachau reprisals remain controversial. Extremists attempt to equate them with Nazi crimes. Historians reject that comparison. What occurred was not planned extermination. It was a psychological breaking point, a moment when ordinary men encountered absolute evil and reacted as humans, not symbols. When confronted with rooms full of dead children, with starvation made visible, the boundary between soldier and avenger disappears. At Dachau today, memorials honor the 30,000 victims of the camp. There is no monument for the SS guards who died against the wall. Their graves are unmarked. History rendered its verdict. The American soldiers carried the memory of the train for the rest of their lives. Many tried to forget what they did. None forgot what they saw. One veteran later said that while killing prisoners was wrong, on that day, in that place, it felt unavoidable. Here is the question that history leaves behind. If you had stood beside that train, would you have done anything differently? If this documentary made you think, share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. Your perspective matters. If you want more deep, untold stories from history, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss what comes next.